Nicolas Cage is a living enigma. Seriously, he really is. He really, truly is. Hey, what's up, you guys? Film Fan 0599 here again, and today we're going to review Mom and Dad. So, Mom and Dad stars Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair, and what this film is basically about. It's about, when a virus hits, a 24-hour virus hits that, parents are now starting to kill their children, basically. And, this teenage daughter and her little brother, they need to basically try and survive, from their parents trying to kill them. So, what did I think of Mom and Dad? Now, going into this, I was aware of this movie. I did see the trailer for it. I was like, this looks insane as all hell. And it's got Nicolas Cage, the living enigma himself. So, I did have some interest in seeing it, and, I finally did. Me and my good buddies, Tony and Caden, we all watched it together last night. And, so what did I think of the film? Well, it's really weird, honestly. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. It's really weird with this movie. Because this movie has a lot of terrible things going for it. It really does. But however, I was consistently entertained by it. Like, it's one of those movies that is like, it's like a guilty pleasure. It honestly is. It is a beautiful disaster, this movie. This movie is a beautiful disaster. There's a lot of bad things going for it, but I can't lie. I had a blast watching it, though. It is literally a beautiful disaster to witness on screen. It honestly, truly is. Like, I honestly had a pretty solid time with this, even though it is really not that good of a movie. So, I would say this is absolutely, easily a guilty pleasure movie. But let's get to the positives with the film, because I do have positives with the movie. Firsthand, the acting necessarily, I wouldn't say it's good, but it's not bad either. Like, here's the thing. With Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair, like, they both play crazy people very well, especially Nicolas Cage, obviously, because he's out of his damn mind, the man. So, obviously, he's gonna play that very well, and, he's being Nicolas Cage, like, insane Nicolas Cage, and he's great. Like, it's great to witness. Like, every time he was on screen, it was just awesome to watch, because, he's Nicolas Cage, and he's acting insane as usual, and it was just funny to watch, honestly. Like, I enjoyed him in the film. Selma Blair, she did pretty solid, for the most part, I want to say. She was good. Like, I thought mostly when she was, acting crazy and all that, I thought that's when she was really good, to be honest. Like, that's when I thought she did a pretty solid job. I didn't really think the kids were all that bad either. They weren't necessarily terrible in the film either. So, I will say the acting is not the worst for the most part, honestly, but it's just, I guess, something that will get you through the movie. Like I said, I could not help but laugh, and I just have a blast throughout honestly, a lot of this movie. Like, there's some stuff that happens in this film that I am like, what am I watching? Like, what in God's name am I seriously watching? Like, you really question that a lot throughout the film. But it's funny, though. Like, it's just hilarious. Like, this is supposed to, like, I guess, come off as serious in a way. Like, but it's just funny. Like, it really is. Like, just the way a lot of it is handled and all that, it's just like, this is unintentionally hilarious. And especially when you get to, like, the last act of the movie, then it just goes completely bonkers and is hilarious. So, yeah, I will say that even though this movie is not that great, like I said, I couldn't help but be entertained by it, because there was just so many moments that just had me dying of laughter. There are some moments that are intense. It's mostly when it involves Nicolas Cage. Honestly, like, I will say that it's mostly when it involves Nicolas Cage. Like, when the intense stuff I found to be intense, really. You know, when the actual horror element, I guess, is really works is when it's with him, honestly. So there were some moments that I thought were intense, but not really too much. And lastly, I'll say the pacing's good because I will say, even though, you know, like, I really don't think as a whole, really, the movie isn't all that great, I will say at least it moved at a nice pace, at least. I will say that. For a movie that's only an hour and 26 minutes, I believe, I will say it does move at a pretty solid pace and tries to get, what it needs to get done in that runtime. Now the negatives, because there are really some negatives with this movie. First being, the rest of the acting isn't all that great. It goes really over the top, honestly, and, like, just acts really over dramatic, and it's just not that great, honestly. So, yeah, the rest of the acting isn't necessarily the best in this. I really didn't feel all that intense, the intensity all that much with the movie. I thought the actual horror element and, you know, horror thriller element wasn't really executed all that well, in my opinion. You know, like I said, there are some moments that are like that, and I was, you know, very, like, suspenseful, only at times. For the most part, really, I just didn't think they executed that all that well, because it just, I really couldn't take it seriously, because I was just laughing at it, really, and that's not what I'm supposed to do. So, yeah, I really didn't think they executed that all that well. Like, a lot of the writing is not that great. Like, I really did not think... The writing is honestly pretty bad with this movie, and I really didn't think the writing was all that great. Same goes with the music, too. The music was really weird. A lot of the weird music choices they had with this movie, like, I really did think so. I think they had some really weird music choices with this film. Like, a lot of it didn't fit with the scenes necessarily. Like, I really just didn't think, like, even the score, even, like, I just didn't think fit with the movie. Like, I really didn't think the music was all that well done in the film. The directing is not good. It is a poorly directed movie. Like, it is not well shot. The editing, dear God almighty, this has to be, I think, the worst editing I've seen all year. And this is directed by the people that, this is directed by the person that did both the Crank movies and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, and it really shows, because literally the editing style with this movie is literally like those films, especially the Crank movies. And that's why I'm not necessarily a fan of those movies, because of the editing with this movie, because the editing is pretty bad, honestly. Like, it's very quick cut, very, like, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, like, it's pretty bad, honestly. It's probably the worst thing about this film. And also how some scenes are edited together. Like, will be very, like, an intense scene, and then a random flashback will happen. Like, wait, what? Like, it's so random, and it really just does not work, honestly. It really doesn't. So I will say the editing is, like, easily, I think, the worst thing about this movie, honestly, because it is really poorly edited. And the cinematography is alright, I guess. Like, it's not that great either. So yeah, the directing really isn't that great with the film. Overall, Mom and Dad is a pretty interesting movie. Like, it's not a good film. It really isn't. But I can't help but say I was not entertained throughout this. Because I really was. Like, it is one of those movies that it's, you know, it's a guilty pleasure, like it honestly is. And I really don't see any other movie that could come close to this, really, as guilty pleasure material for this year. Like, seriously, this is like an ultimate guilty pleasure. So it's time for my official grade on Mom and Dad, and my official grade on Mom and Dad is a C-. I think that's honestly the perfect grade for this, honestly, because even though, like I said, it's not that good of a film, like I said, I couldn't help but be entertained by it, at least. Like, it's a beautiful disaster, like I keep on pulling it. It's a beautiful disaster of a movie, and I will say this, if you're going into this expecting an actual good movie, you're probably gonna hate this. You're gonna, like, demolish this. But if you go into this expecting, like, okay, maybe it's not that great, but it could be guilty pleasure material, then maybe you might have a blast with it. So, who knows? But Mom and Dad, you know, overall for me, like I said, although it's not a good movie, I will say it is at least entertaining. It's a guilty pleasure. Basic way to put it. So, yeah, get to C minus. So, if you have seen Mom and Dad, what did you think of it? Leave in the comment section below. And I'm Film Fan 0599, and we will see you about later. Peace.